Get ready to indulge your legal curiosity with a unique blend of knowledge and entertainment on Legal Candy with Attorney Candice Colucci. Each week, she unwraps the sweet secrets of the legal world, covering a wide range of topics from property insurance claims and personal injury to national and Florida law hot topics. Guests will include industry whistleblowers, industry experts, and sweet surprises. Get ready for a flavorful journey through the legal landscape. And now, let's dive in with Candice.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Legal Candy with Attorney Candice Colucci. Thank you for joining us. So if we recall, last week we talked about the shooting that happened in Tampa, Florida, in Ybor City, right outside the nightclub that my family owns. So we'll give you just a little update because we don't want to leave you guys hanging with that. But so since the last time we talked, the gentleman that had been arrested, Tyrell, for allegedly shooting one of the victims, who's to say if he's actually the victim yet, that's still developing. He has hired a private attorney. And so when he has claimed self-defense, I think we talked a little bit about that last week. There is evidence showing that the young kid who was 14 years old that got shot did have a gun on him. So they have retrieved that weapon. So the allegations are that it potentially is self-defense or gang fighting, and they both kind of go to pull for their gun, and one of them obviously is faster to the draw. And Tyrell did turn himself in. I don't think we even talked about that before. That is a huge, huge point when it comes down to the judicial system. The fact you turn yourself in, the court systems do look at that very favorably to think that you have taken responsibility for your actions in some shape or form. They didn't have to kind of track him down. He did turn himself in. And so based on that, we did talk about the self-defense last week, and I thought one of the points that had come up afterwards in the self-defense that Tyrell is alleging is that one of the things is he's potentially charged with the murder of the 14-year-old, but there is a 20-year-old bystander who also was shot. So if it is determined that the same gun Tyrell was using was the bullet matches what it ended up hitting the young 20-year-old from South Tampa, unfortunately, he could have a whole nother set of charges that may end up coming on, because the police department can, and so can the state attorney, they can add charges as you are awaiting your original charges. So we will keep you updated on that. So we have got such an exciting guest today. I am just overly thrilled for you guys to kind of learn what we were talking about when we said that we wanted to give you guys those sweet secrets of the laws. Really what we want to do is to be able to give you that knowledge to empower you in several different areas. And we planned on starting in the area that our law firm focuses mainly on. And so we do property damage insurance claims. Colucci Law Group is the law firm that I own. And so we do property damage insurance claims. We also do personal injury and immigration. And so since we are in hurricane season right now, coming from you live right now out of Florida, in Clearwater, Florida. Florida, as most people know, is the Mecca Center for hurricanes. We've got no shortage of them, and unfortunately has posed massive insurance issues. And one of the things we really want to educate everybody on is, what does an insurance claim look like? And how can we give you some nuggets of information that better protects you? And who we have on today is going to be, it's Shaun Markwardt, and he is a former adjuster who worked for the insurance company and now has flipped sides based on his morals, the things that he was seeing. And so he's here today as a whistleblower to give you guys some secrets on some of the fraud that he was witnessing the insurance companies engage in. And so we are going to get to him really shortly, and we are just overly excited about it. But I want to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what an insurance claim looks like. In other episodes, we will go into more details, but I want to at least give you a little bit so they kind of know where we're coming from when we bring in Shaun and what his role is in regards to that insurance claim. So this is how a normal insurance claim, just a little brief overview, looks like. Is you have damage to your home. We're gonna focus on a hurricane damage, because that's really where we've got a lot of claims that has happened recently. And so if we're looking at a hurricane claim, this is what the normal life cycle of a claim looks like. So an insured will have a hurricane that potentially damages their home. You're going to file a claim. You have to file the claim timely. Your policy requires that. So you file an insurance claim. And then what happens is the insurance company, who is supposed to be on your side and is supposed to be, that good old neighbor and supposed to be protecting you, the very first thing that they usually do is they log the claim. They give you a claim number. And then they are supposed to send out an adjuster from their side, from the insurance company side. And they're supposed to be representing you too. But unfortunately, as we will see and we'll talk about, that is not always the case. And so this adjuster, who we call a field adjuster a lot of times, they're actually going to come out and see your property. They're going to look at that damage. And their job is to come up with an estimate of the damages. An actual estimate to say, this is what we think your damages are. They take that adjusting report and they give it back to the desk adjuster. So that's the person for the insurance company that's sitting there at their desk. And they're the ones who you're calling to try to get updates on your claim. And then they're going to determine how much money is paid based on what that field adjuster has written in an estimate. So when people hear the word adjuster, what that means is most of the time they're talking about this adjuster for the insurance company, who we called a field adjuster. Now, when an insurance company gets overwhelmed, they get a lot of claims that happen after a hurricane, they will hire somebody, they'll outsource some of that work to companies that they call IAs, independent adjusters. So they're working on behalf of the insurance company, but they're usually people that are like contract employees. And so Shaun, as he will explain as soon as we have him come on, what he saw when he was an adjuster. So that's how the process kind of unravels. Then you find out how much your insurance company is going to pay you. They'll tell you, they're supposed to send you the estimate and a check. And a lot of times that's not enough money. And so at that point in time is when an insured will either work with the insurance company themselves and fight back and forth to try to get more money. They'll have their contractor help them, or they can hire their own public adjuster. And those are those words we've been hearing about, like PA, public adjuster. Those are people that are licensed by the state to represent you in your insurance claim against the insurance company. So people will hire a public adjuster, or they'll go and just hire an attorney. So that's like our firm. Our firm can come in. We help create an estimate of what we believe the damages truly are. And then we fight back and forth with the insurance company to make sure that you're paid accordingly. So will a public adjuster. If you go the public adjuster route, they will fight. And when they come to a standstill, a lot of times they're able to get more money and you don't have to go to litigation. You're good to go. And if not, then they'll hire an attorney. So there's a couple different routes that you can take. So that's the life cycle. So when you hear somebody use the word independent adjuster or adjuster, they're talking about somebody who works for the insurance company. But if you hear the word public adjuster, PA, that's somebody that you've hired to work for you. So based on that, we've got Shaun here who's going to tell us some of those secrets that he was seeing on the inside to really kind of inform you of what you guys should be looking for. I want to start by saying that obviously our show's called Legal Candy, but anything you hear on here is not creating attorney-client privilege. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to our firm, or you should reach out to an attorney to get other answers. And I know Shaun is a great resource. So once we get all of his information, you can always reach out to him too with questions. We'll make sure you have his information. And so you'll hear a little bit more from him on what he has actually seen. So what ends up usually taking place is that when I got involved in claims, it was because I started seeing a pattern of practice of just lowball numbers, wrongful denials, and straight up lies. So based on that, that's how I started getting involved in becoming an advocate for the insureds. So I'm going to introduce Shaun. So I'm going to get my headphones on so I can hear him really well. So I'm going to introduce Shaun. And so Shaun, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much for having me.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to start by saying that I know how difficult this is. It is extremely difficult to stand up for what that you feel is right, but not just to do it, but to do it when it can potentially affect you monetarily. And that's really what you did. So you were working for the insurance company, and now you've decided to flip sides based on what you're seeing. So before we talk about the fraud that you witnessed and the things that you saw, let's talk a little bit about yourself. So tell us how you got involved in the insurance world.
Sure. I have been in the insurance business since I graduated college in 2002, primarily as a staff adjuster, and that is to say working as a W-2 directly for insurance companies. Then in 2017, I became an independent adjuster and worked with multiple insurance companies and independent adjusting firms as a contractor.
Okay. Was there a reason why you felt compelled to become an adjuster?
It was in college. I was a crew leader for a water restoration company, and I really enjoyed that line of work. And then I started looking at, when I was graduating college, I started looking at insurance companies, and I thought, well, I can do that. I looked after reading the job description, and I thought, what a cool way to be able to have a meaningful, positive impact on people.
So that was your motivation, is you were thinking it could be a cool way for me to be able to help people, because you're working for the insurance company. You're making sure that they get paid for their damages. And so you're on the inside. So you're like, this is going to be a way for me to be able to help other people. Correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way, right? So you realize that's not the side that you're going to be on for your experience to be able to help people, unfortunately.
It changed a lot over the last 20 years. For quite some time, I was really able to help a lot of people, especially in hurricane situations, or somebody experienced a fire to their home or business, or and that kind of thing. But it changed over time. Would you like me to go into what happened in Florida?
Let's start before Florida. Let's go into what a normal process may have looked like before. So when you're first being trained to be an adjuster for the insurance company, what does some of that training look like? What are you learning how to do?
Sure. In training, I actually feel like I received really good training. There were many subtle things that came up that, looking back, it appeared that some of the training that was taking place was anti-contractor and anti-public adjuster, because there is I don't know the right word, but maybe a rift or just a natural animosity between the two, and there has been for a very, very long time, between the insurance company and public adjusters and contractors.
And I happen to be of the opinion that some of that rift comes from it. There was a time where there are some bad actors. Obviously, we can talk about that. There's some bad actors. There's some contractors that take advantage of the claims. There's some public adjusters, and there's some attorneys. And as we know now, there's also insurance companies that engage in that behavior. So that rift that you're talking about is, in my opinion, the majority of contractors and public adjusters are really there to advocate for the insureds. They're there to make sure they get paid enough. But they have a vested interest also in getting paid more for the work that they're going to be doing. So a public adjuster gets paid based on a percentage of money that the insurance company pays after they get involved. And so that's usually about 10 to 20%. So if it's a hurricane, it has to be 10%, can't be any more by the state of Florida. So which means if you get involved and you're a public adjuster and you get involved in a claim and you write the estimate for the insured, you submit it to the insurance company. If they pay $100,000, then you're paying the public adjuster. If it's 10%, you're paying them $10,000. And so based on that type of potentially ulterior motive is what sometimes the insurance companies hang their hat on for why that rift exists. Now, I see it more as the rift exists because those are the people that are advocating for the insured. They're the ones who are educating them along with the attorneys. They're saying, hey, did you know that you should have been paid more? Did you know that this shouldn't have been denied? So they really should all be working together. But unfortunately, a contractor and a public adjuster and attorney are fighting to get more money, while the insurance company, unfortunately, a lot of times is they're in the business of making money, which is for them, the less money they pay out, the more money that they end up making. So that rift that you're talking about that you're seeing has been going on for a really long time, and now we're at the kind of crux of that war between those two sides. So you said you're in their training. That's what you see. What else are they training you? Are they training you how to find damage, write estimates? Like, what's that training look like?
They are the first company that I started with was it was a 2-week training, and I realized that for somebody that does not have very much experience with many adjusters have not been contractors before, right? So you send somebody to training for 2 weeks. Now I don't even know if it's 2 weeks, but back then it was. And so if you see somebody for 2 weeks and then call them an adjuster, there is an unbelievably more amount to learn about estimating, construction, and the process than you can possibly learn in 2 weeks.
And so 2 weeks was all that you got. So you got 2 weeks of training, and you didn't have to have a contractor's license, right, in order to do this?
That's correct. The only thing that you have to have is if it is a state that requires an adjuster license, you have to be licensed in that state or any state that you work in that requires a license.
Okay. So we're going to go for our first commercial break. So stay with us afterwards, because we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of all that fraud, unfortunately, that Shaun saw in order to change his mind and to flip sides to truly be able to advocate for the insureds. So stay with us until we get back. All right, so we are back with Shaun, a former adjuster for the insurance company who has now switched sides based on everything that he has seen. So we were talking about the training, and you were saying, okay, they trained you for 2 weeks to be able to go out and to write an estimate of an insured's property. So in your opinion, that's not enough time?
Not at all.
Not at all. And you don't have to have any qualifications before that. You don't have to have a construction license. You don't have to have a roofing license, but you're going out there and you are estimating the damage. So if you go out to a property and a tree fell on the house and water has come in from rising water because a hurricane potentially came over there. So trees fall, all kinds of stuff happens to this house. Your job now is to write an estimate for what it would take in order to put back that home back to its pre-loss condition. That's what an adjuster is supposed to be doing. And the training is 2 weeks to be able to write that.
Absolutely correct. And for an independent adjuster, it's significantly less for training.
Yeah. So it starts off with potentially not the right training in order to do that. And everybody's going to rely upon that to begin the claim process. That adjuster is going to go write that estimate. Then the desk adjuster who hasn't seen it is going to take that, and that's what they're supposed to be issuing payments towards. So it already has its faulty sides to it. And everybody seems to be trusting that process. Most people do, and that's what we see a lot. So you go through the training, and you start actually working as an independent adjuster. And so you're writing these estimates for the insurance companies. Now, at the beginning, before it really hit the head, and we'll talk about Hurricane Ian that hit in September of 2022 down in Southwest Florida, where you really saw the most intense, fraud that you had been talking about. What was the experience like before that? Had you seen the insurance companies engaging in behavior that you really didn't think was all that above board?
I have. However, it was subtle compared to what I witnessed in Southwest Florida. It was just much more subtle. I've never seen it so egregious as I did after Hurricane Ian hit Florida.
Okay. So let's talk about Hurricane Ian. So that hit in September 28th of 2022, and it hit all through that Southwest Florida area. So it hit Fort Myers, Cape Coral. It came all the way up to Sarasota. It went all the way down to Naples, all around along that coast. And in our law firm, we actually rode out the storm down by Port Charlotte. So we went down there with our team, and we made sure that we were prepared and ready for anybody who may not have evacuated and needed help. Tree removals, trees were falling on the streets, on cars, on people's homes. We found some people that were stuck in the middle of the road that needed to go back to. They needed to find safety, so we took them to a hospital. So that storm was very, very devastated. It was a Category 4, Category 5 hurricane. There were areas where the wind was like 160 miles per hour, extremely scary. And so right after that, people start filing claims. And so do you start getting kind of deployed down there? Is that what happens? Or because you weren't normally in that area? Is that how kind of it works once the insurance company starts getting all these claims in?
That's correct. What they'll do is so independent adjusters work through independent adjusting firms. And the independent adjusting firms, it's kind of like an agent for an independent adjuster, right? So they provide you with claims to work, and they take a certain percentage of every claim in order for them giving you work, right? So that's what, and then what the independent adjusting firms do is they'll begin, if there's a hurricane out there, and they know all the forecast and weather models and all that kind of stuff. So they'll start sending out emails to everybody that's on their roster for a standby notice, getting other independent adjusters to commit to working claims with them.
Okay. And so how does the payment structure work when you're writing an estimate for an insurance company? Do you get paid based on the amount of the estimate that you're writing?
Yes.
And so do you get paid more if it's higher or less, or how does that work?
Right. So each fee schedule with each independent adjusting firm is different. Some are, some have what are considered really good fee schedules. Some have not so good, but it will say something like, okay, if the estimate is 0 to 10,000, then the fee to the independent adjuster is X. If it's $10,001 to, 15,000, then they get X, which is more. So, and then eventually, a lot of times if they get to be, if the estimates get to increase pretty high, then sometimes it changes to a percentage, but it really depends on each firm. But that is correct. The higher the estimate, generally speaking, the more the fee is to the independent adjuster.
So describe some of the damage that you were seeing down south after Hurricane Ian.
Yeah, it was a pretty devastating area. What we saw was there were roofs that were completely destroyed, tile roofs, shingled roofs. There was also a lot of exterior damage, a lot of trees falling on properties, etc. Things that you would normally see during a Category 4 storm.
And how soon after the hurricane hit did you first start seeing your first homes that you were estimating the damages for?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was about 2 weeks. And one of the reasons for that is because there's access issues. Mm-hmm. So I had, as an independent adjuster, we're 1099, right? We're contractors. So it's up to us to find our own living arrangements. Mm-hmm. Some people, they might have slept in their car for a little bit. I was very blessed. I was able to find an Airbnb. Granted, it was a ways away, but I was able to find one that was up and running and restored power very quickly. So I was down there about 2 weeks, about 2 weeks after the storm struck.
And that's the thing that people don't think about either, is that what happens is that you have so much damage after a Category 4 or 5 hurricane that you've got all these homes that are damaged and they're unlivable. So there was massive areas where the water came up 12, 14 feet, and that water is contaminated from the ocean. It's got dead animals in it. It smells like just death. There's mold already growing everywhere. And so those areas become unlivable. So then those people hurry up and they evacuate to potentially a hotel. That's if there's electricity. There was massive areas that didn't have any electricity. So like you were saying, it's hard to even find a place to stay. And there were a lot of adjusters, a lot of people who are working for the insurance companies and working for the insureds. They were living in RVs, in their car, anything they could to try to start kind of rebuild, help this process to kind of rebuild. So you get down there and you start seeing that damages. So your plan is, okay, my job is to come out here, write for the damage that I see. I wanted to make a difference. So that's really what you're doing. You're like, my job is to make sure that I'm writing for the damage you see. That is your job. Like if you see something damaged, the idea is to write an estimate of what it would take to rebuild. So you start writing those estimates, and when do you start seeing things that are a little off?
Okay. So I begin inspecting and writing estimates, and it was about a week in is when the firms began reviewing my estimate. Okay, so what that means is that once you submit an estimate to the independent adjusting firm, the independent adjusting firm has reviewers that review it, and typically speaking, if there's any changes that they feel like need to be made, if you violated a guideline, violation's a bad, maybe not be the right word, but if if there's a guideline that you didn't adhere to or whatever, then what they're supposed to do is, and what my experience has been, is that they'll return the claim to you and say, hey, we noticed XYZ, please make those changes and resubmit it. Okay, well, so that didn't happen. What I noticed was the estimating system that we use. I saw about a week after I began, I saw that my first claim that had been reviewed was quote unquote, I received a notification stating that it was quote unquote collaborated.
Okay, collaborated.
So I thought, well, that's odd. So I went into the system that powers our estimating system in the back, kind of behind it, and that system behind everything, it has where every document is when you upload an estimate, the photo report, your narrative, and everything like that. So I went to look to see what had happened, and on this particular claim, and I'm not going to be specific with names or locations because I don't feel like that's pertinent. But
absolutely.
This particular claim was a tile roof with also a significant amount of other exterior damage. The tile roof was most of it was destroyed, and so I wrote to replace the tile roof and then also estimate to replace all of the other damage. Well, the collaboration was somebody had changed my estimate to remove the roof from my estimate, and what they did is they actually estimated to replace 499 tiles on this roof. I immediately became angry because I'm like, I'm the one on the front line. I'm the one that actually was on site. So you have somebody that I don't know where they were, possibly in another state, or even if they were there, they were. And
somebody meaning somebody from the insurance company,
right? Well, or the firm.
Okay.
There's a difference between what I know and what I think, right?
Okay.
So I know that the firm had made those changes, right? So I called the manager because I was upset because these poor people, they're older, they can't get they can't get the job done for what the estimate was changed to be, right? And one other thing is that once I saw the estimate, what they did was they left my name on the estimate as the estimator, and they presented that to the insured and represented it as my work product, which it was no longer my work product when somebody changed it.
And
right?
and when you do these inspections, you go there because I go to these inspections. It is a heart-wrenching experience. We've done them all over the country, and between Florida and Louisiana, the damage that happens, especially how fast that mold moves, you build a relationship with these people because you're going into their homes and you're watching the most. For a lot of these people, their home is everything to them. It's what they have invested their life in. It's where they've raised their children. And so the damage that happens to these homes, and the only solace that they have is they're like, well, at least I have insurance. At least my insurance is going to cover. I've been paying this insurance for 35 years without a claim. And so you've built a relationship by being out there because they're going to tell you everything that took place. They're going to tell you because they think that you're there to help them. So I can only imagine the feeling you must feel when now your estimate's been changed and your name is still on it.
Absolutely. Most people are good people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're not trying to screw anybody. Excuse me.
Yeah. No. It's fine.
But they're not trying to take advantage of anybody. They want their homes fixed. Yeah. And they are owed to have their homes fixed. And so for an IA firm or an insurance company to change an estimate to now not be an accurate estimate is just, it's unconscionable and frankly disgusting.
I cannot agree more to that. So then after so you realize that your name is still on this, and now it's a lie. It's not what you have estimated. It also makes, because on our side as attorneys, when I am calling into question the legitimacy of an estimate that an adjuster made, and I sit them down for a deposition and I question them because their name's on it, and now it also looks like you're technically incompetent, because you've already written it for the fact that it needs to be replaced because you have 160. Some of these places had a gust of winds of 180 miles an hour. These roofs are just destroyed. And so now you look like a liar to the insured, but also, just like you're saying, it's just disgusting. So you realize that, and do you start questioning people? You start asking for answers of why this happened?
Absolutely. I immediately picked up the phone and called the claims manager that I was working with at that particular firm, and I said, hey, I told him what was going on, and I said, this is totally unacceptable. And his response to me was, well, I'm sorry, Shaun, we're just trying to we're trying to make sure that the estimates adhere to carrier guidelines. Carrier
guidelines. Now, do you know what those carrier means? The insurance company, right? That's another way that we name them. Sometimes we call them carriers. And do you know what those guidelines are?
So I don't agree with a lot of guidelines by insurance companies, because they can't be allowed to say how estimates should be written without even inspecting one claim. These guidelines were put in place before the storm even occurred. So how could they possibly make a unilateral decision on how estimates should be written, because they don't know what the damage on one property is?
And what's an example of a guideline? Can you think of any of them?
An example of a guideline would be so for drip edge, for example. What some insurance companies will say is that drip edge is removed during the process of the removal of the roof, right? So therefore, we're only going to replace drip edge. We're not going to remove and replace drip edge. The problem with that argument is that drip edge is nailed down. You actually have to remove it.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be anybody's problem that the insurance company doesn't agree with the price to remove drip edge. It's in the database that the insurance company uses.
So those guidelines are in place to really be buffers to limit the amount of money that you guys can write on those estimates.
I can't prove that, but I do believe that.
Okay. And so, you're saying you don't agree with some of those guidelines?
Correct.
Okay. So you find out that they're saying we're trying to stay within the carrier's guidelines, which it sounds like to me in my opinion, it sounds like it's a way to limit their liability and how much they're going to pay. And so then what happens? So you're like, well, my name's on this. That's now potentially fraud because I didn't write this. This is not what I wrote it for. And then what takes place?
Right. So I ended the phone call because I had a lot to process with what I had just seen. And so, what was going through my mind and emotionally is that I have devoted my entire career to helping people, right?
Absolutely.
And so what I just witnessed was the most egregious display of fraud that I'd ever seen in my career, right?
Okay. Well, we're gonna take a quick break again. So everyone just stay with us, because just like he said, this is the most egregious fraud he has seen in his career, and we want to tell you more about it. So stay with us until we come right back. Welcome back to Legal Candy with Attorney Candice Colucci. We have Shaun here, who's still telling us all those great nuggets of the stuff that he learned when he worked for the insurance company and the fraud that he has seen. So we were just in the middle of you explaining to us that fraud. So after you'd seen this, the changing of the estimate that you created on behalf of the insurance company, now it's been changed to less than what you wrote it for, and you believe that's not enough money to get the work done. So then what takes place after that?
Right. So after I witnessed that and spoke with the manager at the independent adjusting firm, I called a good friend of mine who was working with the same firm, and I was like, hey man, this is what I just saw, and so I knew him, and then he knew a couple of others. So we started comparing notes, and what we found was this is a trend that was not limited to just me. This is a trend that is limited to at least those other whistleblowers who we came forward together, and more. I had other adjusters reach out to me after the fact saying it, but they're afraid to come forward because you're going to get blacklisted, which means insurance companies don't like it if you catch them doing something wrong, right? So if you come out and publicly expose their bad behavior or fraud, they're not going to want to work with you.
So you're talking to other adjusters who are saying this is happening. So the reason why this is so amazing, once you came forward, the sad part about dealing with a big entity like an insurance company is that they've got so much power, and it's such an imbalance that when we're trying to advocate, as an attorney, I'm trying to advocate for the insureds, and I'm the one saying these estimates, this work cannot be done. It's clearly you've underpaid them. You've wrongfully denied them. I mean, those are the allegations that I make to the insurance company. And make no mistake, they make us sound crazy. They make the public adjusters sound insane. They're just like, they're just appalled. They're always appalled. It's never that we go to represent the insured and the insurance company is like, hey, yeah, I agree with you. You're right. They do sometimes issue some more money, but they don't do it as an apology. Like, hey, we should have done this right from the beginning. There are times they really, truly fight us. And so you coming forward has got it's so magnificent because it really does put legitimacy to a lot of the fight that a lot of us have been doing against the insurance company, who have stood behind the fact that, no, we're doing the best by them, and we're not engaged in any fraud. The fraud is really on the insured side. It really is the contractors, the public adjusters, or the attorneys. So you coming forward is just so mind-blowing for me, and it's such a great relief to feel for me and so many homeowners who have also been made to feel that they are crazy, that they are wrong. How dare them question the insurance company? And a lot of people don't question the insurance company. Before I became an attorney in this industry, I wouldn't have questioned them. I would have gotten a letter from them telling me that it was denied, or I've gotten a letter saying that this is all we're paying and we're not paying anything else. And I literally would have said, and I had said before, because I had a claim before, that, okay, that's it. I wouldn't imagine the insurance company that I have been loyal to, that's supposed to be loyal to me, is going to lie to me. And that has been the shocker, I think, of me being in this industry, but then you coming forward. What's beautiful about you coming forward is the solace that it gives to so many homeowners who've been made to feel that way, and the education we want to give to them, saying, hey, you should be questioning these things. So you find out that they're engaging in this behavior on a much wider scale. And are you seeing a lot of wrongful denials too? Because there was a lot of denials down south where they just denied the claim. They're like, this, we're not paying for this or that. Did you see a lot of that stuff too?
Absolutely. And let me begin this by saying that one of the sad things is that insurance adjusters don't actually, or I don't want to say all of them, but most don't actually think that they are committing fraud. And the reason why is because they are told to perform their job a certain way by their employer, right? You're supposed to trust your employer.
Yeah.
Your employer is supposed to do what's right for the common good of our society and, Florida and our country, right? So a lot of them are just, you're conditioned to think a certain way, and a lot of them don't think that they're doing anything wrong because they're doing what their boss is telling them to, and that's one of the sad realities that we're facing. But I had a claim you asked about denials. So one claim in particular was in Fort Myers, and they had 135, 140 mile an hour winds, right? And it was on the right on the water, I guess a canal or whatever. So so this home had experienced flooding in their home up to the ceiling of their one-story house, right? Well, flood insurance is handled by a different group. It's like FEMA and their adjusters, right? So I just handled the wind aspect of it. So the only thing
there are two different types of policies, and people don't normally notice that your flood is going to be any water that's rising. That's a flood insurance claim with your flood insurer. And then wind's going to be anything that comes in from like the wind damage. That's going to be a whole different policy. So that was a fight that we were seeing between the two different policies. So that's what you're talking about now. So they had flood all the way up to the first floor, but you're there not handling the flood claim. You're there on behalf of the insurance company for the wind claim.
Correct. So right. So they so the only thing that I could write for, because I'm not a flood adjuster, was any damage to the roof, and in this particular case, they had food spoilage coverage. Okay. Well, the roof was completely trashed, and one of the things that I witnessed was that there may not have been a whole lot of missing shingles because it was a fairly new roof, but I think it was I can't remember how old that roof was. I want to say it was like 3 years old, but it looked like a 20-plus-year-old roof. It was completely trashed, and there were scrapes from windblown debris, significant granule loss due to the hurricane. So I estimated to replace the roof, and then I also estimated for the policy limit of food spoilage, which wasn't much, right? The firm, I can't remember if it was the firm or the insurance company on this particular one, but I did receive an email stating that they reviewed the estimate with management and determined that no wind damage occurred to the roof, which is a bunch of bull. Yeah. So then they said, so we're going to give $600 for food spoilage. Well, then I believe another 2 days later or something like that, I received another email stating that the flood water caused the power outage, which is completely untrue, because we can prove that the power outage occurred before the flood waters came in, right? But they said that the flood waters caused the power outage, therefore they don't even get the $600 of food spoilage, so they get exactly $0.
Oh my gosh,
it's unconscionable.
It is. It really is. And I think what people don't realize is when I got involved and I started working hurricanes, the aftermath of that behavior that you just explained destroys people's lives. I have seen suicides. Financial problems is one of the number one reasons for depression, suicide, murder, divorces, children behavior issues.
64% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in the bank.
Paycheck to paycheck is how they live.
Absolutely. So the insurance company is supposed to help, especially in a legitimate time of need, right? And the particular on the claims that I worked, they failed miserably.
So once you see that, what kind of are you allowed to advocate? Can you call the insurance company and talk to the desk adjuster yourself and say this is wrong, absolutely wrong? Are you able to fight with your IA firm? Are you able to do any of those things?
Well, honestly, I was still a bit in shock of what I was seeing. So I actually spoke with a public adjuster friend of mine in Florida, and I was like, I mean, they can't be allowed to do this. This is criminal behavior, right? I'm not an attorney, but you don't have to be an attorney to see what's going on, right? And so I told my friend, I said, this is criminal. I said, and then I was talking to the other now whistleblowers, stuff, and I was like, okay, well, so what I had suggested, because I've been in this insurance business a long time, right? I have a family, okay? I will not allow an insurance company to put any blame for what they did on me and caused it harm to my family. So I suggested to the other guys, I said, okay, here's what we need to do. I said we need to go into the system that runs the estimating system, because all the documents and everything is in that system, including a document where we can see who changed the estimate.
The changes that were made.
Who changed the estimate, when they changed it, what they changed it from and to. Okay? And I said, we need to keep all of those documents because I'll be doggone if I'm going to let anybody lie about anything that I've done, because it's all documented right there. So then a couple days later, my friend called me back and said, hey, I work with a certain attorney in Florida who I didn't know because I don't live there. I just work there, of course. And he says, he would like to talk with you about this, because I told my friend, I was like, something has to be done. I can't just not do something. And so anyway, so he says, but I wanted to ask you permission before I gave him your information. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So so the attorney called me, and I told him what was going on, and then I was able to get him connected to the other whistleblowers, and so he interviewed us on a YouTube video as far as what we witnessed in Florida after Ian.
And so you felt compelled, because I thought is interesting what you said. You're like, I have a family, and I don't want this to look like it's on me, that I'm engaging in this behavior. And so from a legal perspective, we'll talk about what fraud is. And I know we're running short on time, so I already know that we're going to have you on next week, because we have to continue, because I want to talk about what your journey was like, that what it's like to advocate and stand up against a big bad insurance company, and then what does that do to your livelihood and your security. I mean, they're one of the largest entities in the world. They have the most money, and they're extremely, extremely powerful. They control legislation to some degree, and when we talk about this, we're not talking about every single insurance company. We're not. Right. I can't say this happens all the time, every single one of them, but we are, with what I do for a living, I see a lot of this behavior, and now we have somebody here who's vouching and saying that, yes, I work for the insurance company, this behavior does happen, and it happens a lot. So it's not every insurance company. So when you're saying that you looked at it from your family's perspective, the way fraud works from a legal perspective is fraud is a misrepresentation of a fact to someone else. And if that person relies upon it to their detriment, which means they get hurt by it, then that is the fraud. So when you were explaining what took place with the insurance company taking the estimate that you created, there's several types of fraud happening there. One of the frauds is that they have edited your estimate with your name on it. And so they're making a misrepresentation of fact. The fact is that estimate was written by you, which technically it wasn't. Part of it was, but not the whole entire thing. And then
it makes it look like I'm the one committing the fraud, which I wasn't.
It does make it look like you're the one committing the fraud. So you have potential damages, because also now you're saying your pay structure was altered based on now that new scope that they've made that's less money. So you're potentially getting less money for writing that estimate. But the ultimate just disgusting behavior and just egregious behavior is that the insured, the innocent party in all this who has no idea, most people in their life make one insurance claim, if that, and so they're getting your estimate and they're relying upon it. They're seeing it. Most people don't know that you can hire an attorney like our firm who does it contingency, which means you don't pay anything unless we get more money. Most people don't think that. Nobody knows what a public adjuster is. Before I came into this area of law, I had no idea that you could hire somebody who would work contingency and fight for you against the insurance company. I also would have the fear thinking that there'd be retaliation. They would drop my policy, which unfortunately, based on some of the things that happen, there is sometimes some retaliation. And so all of those things are happening. So the insured gets this misstatement of the fact, which is now this estimate that's incorrect, and they rely upon it. Like, they only get paid a little bit of money. Their damages are they didn't get paid the full amount of money unless they hired an attorney, and a lot of them don't. And so that's where you're seeing that potential fraud. And now you have witnessed it, and you could become a potential accessory to it. Like, you're seeing this criminal activity happening, and now you're a part of it, yet you're not doing anything to stop it. So I definitely see the reason why that you came forward. And I mean, I'm so thankful, because I know how difficult it is. There's a lot of people in this industry where we see a lot of stuff and we're not willing to say it because we're not willing to withstand those consequences of them. And it looked like you were willing to stand up no matter the consequences. And how did that feel? Well,
I knew the consequences that were going to happen. But you know what? Enough is enough.
Yeah.
they can't be allowed to do that. I can't allow
Amen.
my kids to say, "Hey, Daddy, why didn't you do something about it?"
Absolutely.
Right? So it was a very, very scary time for me personally, because I knew what was going to happen. I lost 2 friends, one of which went to my wedding over this. Because there are certain people in the insurance industry who think that every insurance company does exactly what's correct, and all contractors and PAs are the scum of the earth. Mm-hmm. Heck, didn't Jimmy Protonis call PAs locusts?
He literally said that right after a hurricane.
He is a disgusting human being for saying such a stupid thing.
There's a lot of great things that he's done, and I think the sad part is like you're saying, it's a lack of information and knowledge, right? If he's being fed the information from the insurance company that all PAs are just these locusts swarming, I'm like, swarming, they're the ones who really are there to help you. So I know we're running out of time. Shaun, we will have you on next week because the insureds really, truly need to know what happened afterwards and how can they better protect themselves and potentially be able to shield themselves from this type of fraud from some insurance companies. So thank you for joining us today on Legal Candy. We will see you next week with Shaun here again, our whistleblower from the insurance company, to show you some more of that fraud and how you can protect yourself. We'll see you next week.